Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am fucking hype as hell because I have I have someone so badass and so amazing. This is Mike from the Humanist Report. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm so excited to be here, and thank you for describing me as badass. I like to think that I'm a badass, but in actuality, I don't think that, that's the way people view me. But thank you. At least there's one person. So thank you, Joy.
Well, we share glasses, and you have a beard. That's
Exactly.
badass.
Exactly. It's my way of, getting past all of the soy that I eat. So you can't be a soy boy if you have a beard, right? That's what they tell me, I think. I don't know.
True, true. Do you wear like really tight, like girl jeans too?
I don't know if that's like I'm not very hip to fashion at all. So I don't like I just wear just regular cheap $30 jeans. So I don't know if that's, that makes me more of a soy boy or just more like of a normal. I don't know. I don't know.
um, you guys better know who Mike is, but if you don't, his YouTube show has almost 200,000 followers, and it's quite honestly, and I've said this on my show countless times, so I'm not just BSing, but the Humanist Report is one of the reasons I was inspired to start my own show, because Mike is amazing and inspiring. So for those who haven't seen your show for some reason, do you just kind of want to describe what it's like?
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you were encouraged to do your own show because of it. I always want more people to get involved because I feel like there shouldn't just be like five dudes on YouTube talking about progressive politics. There should be a lot of people, talking about progressive issues. But my show is basically it's similar to your show. I will look at news stories and then I'll give you the facts and then I'll basically tell you my opinion. I'll analyze them from the view of a progressive, from the view of a humanist, and I'll kind of try to dissect things that you won't necessarily get from the mainstream media. I'll highlight the bias that you may see. And, at the same time, I try to shit post as well and add memes and just make it entertaining because one thing that's missing from the news is it's so boring and it's so dry. So I try to make it humorous and entertaining, and I try to take my time editing and fact checking myself. And yeah, that's basically it. So, I mean, if you like Bernie Sanders, odds are you're going to find at least something valuable in my show. So check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, and the thing I will say about you as well, I think one of the reasons I followed you and immediately felt like I clicked with you is because you're very different from the other shows out there. Well, first of all, your pronunciation of things is just impeccable.
That's
It
awesome.
really is. Like, as someone who was an English major, I'm like, wow, that guy can talk. It's
That's a
impressive.
phenomenal compliment because I will say this, my parents both have very thick Portuguese accents, especially my dad. So it was something that I always tried to work on because as a kid, I would get made fun of for mispronouncing words. So when I got into college, like whenever I would read something and I recognized the word that I never heard someone say out loud, I would look up the pronunciation of it. So it's something that I've been constantly working on, and you're never going to be 100%, but I'm trying. But that makes me feel good that you're acknowledging that because it's something that's always been a struggle for me.
Oh my gosh, I made a joke about that the other day. I was like, I made a joke like, "Oh my God, Mike's coming on and his pronunciation swoon or something." And then people were like joining in the comments like, "I love the way he says such and such." And so people notice.
Well, I will say this. Editing can do a lot of really phenomenal things. It's a work of magic. So I probably sound like a dumbass in real life, but by the time I finish editing the video, then I sound like a genius. But in actuality, I don't sound like that. I'm just a normal person who probably just rambles on as much as any other individual. And you're going to see that throughout the course of this interview. So yeah, I try.
Yeah, see, guys, I think one of the main differences between Mike and I is that he doesn't typically do a show live, whereas you see me in all my spoofs and, all of my stutters and all those fun things. Like last night, I'm legally blind, and last night there was someone in the comments who was making comments, and I couldn't see their picture, and I may have called him a girl, and he was a boy. So that kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But he messaged me and it was all good. But you know, when you're live, stuff like that can happen and you're just like, damn, like I wish I could, you know, edit that out. So you have that going for you. So you're very fortunate in that regard.
Well, I would love to do live shows. I think there's something really great about just the authenticity for live shows that's lacking in like the pre-recorded shows that I do. The problem is that for me, I am not good at multitasking. So if I'm going to do live shows, I need like someone in the room with me to like make sure the audio is okay, to queue up the clips for me, because I'm horrible at that. So kudos to you for actually just doing it. For me, I stumble, and like I do a monthly Patreon live chat, and all of them know, it's the running joke that I am fucking stupid when it comes to technology. Like, I'm, no kidding, so dumb. I disgrace millennials. So I need someone to help me out. So eventually I would love to switch to live, even if, you know, I don't think it would be as finely tuned. It's still better. Like, it's just something better about doing live shows that I just really enjoy and like. And I love being able to interact with people in real time. So yeah, credit to you for doing live shows, because it's something that I just feel like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just too scary, or I don't know how to do it. I don't know.
No, when you said you're really bad at IT stuff, I guarantee every single person on my team was like, no, Joy. There's no one worse than Joy. No one. Yeah, I mean, I could do a whole show on that. It's bad.
It's tough. The struggle is so real. And I have like some 18-year-olds who are on my chat, and we're trying to bring up like pictures or videos, and like, just stop touching it. Like, just stop. Let me do it. Because they can we use Zoom, so you can like have them take control and do screen share.
Oh,
and I'm trying to screen share, and I accidentally close out, leave the chat, and they're like, stop, let me handle it. Here's the picture that you want everyone to see. You know, it's just, it's embarrassing.
Okay, here's one. Jeff Weaver, Bernard's campaign manager of 32 years. I'm interviewing him in person. I give the best interview I've ever given in my freaking life. I've been doing this over a year and a half. Best interview ever. He's telling me how it's the best interview he's ever done because it's questions he's never been asked. All this stuff. I go to check my camera, it never recorded.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yes.
If it makes you feel any better.
Nervous breakdown. But
oh yeah, I did that too last year, literally with Kaniala Ing.
I had him, and you know what? I think it's the connection. Maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, well, Jeff stayed afterwards and he did it again with me, which I was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. But yeah, that was a bad one. So I'm glad to know I'm not the only one who has this shit happen.
Every single interview I do is a tech disaster if I'm the one controlling it. Like, you could talk to Levy Sanders, Bernie's son. We had, I think it was like 20 minutes of content that we posted. The interview went like 2 hours long because I was recording it off of my computer's hard drive, and I didn't have like the detachable one hooked up. So I kept running out of memory on my computer. So we had to stop, export that. And it was just such a nightmare. But he was so cool about it. He was like 100%. No, this is fine. Don't even worry about it, Mike. This is what happens. And I'm like, this should not happen. This is so unprofessional. But,
no, but
you just got to roll with it.
I talked to him on the phone a lot, and I talked to him the day after he did your show, and he really liked you.
That's good. I was afraid he hated me because it was I would be so like frustrated with this dude who clearly doesn't know what he's doing, but trying to do an interview, and I felt so bad for him.
No, trust me, he has his ones he doesn't like, and you're not.
That's good.
So you're safe.
Good.
So one of the things kind of on that note, someone was telling me you just did an event and you got a standing ovation.
Oh, that was probably at because I don't do very many live events. The only ones I do is when Jimmy Dore will do his comedy tours. And he came to Portland, and the first time I got a standing ovation, which was completely, so I actually didn't even know that I got a standing ovation because I've never been on stage before, and I couldn't see anything because the lights were so bright. So I didn't know what I was even looking at, but Jimmy told me afterwards, yeah, you got a standing ovation. I'm like, I was surprised anyone even know who I was. The second time I didn't though, but because I was walking through, like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that you like go backstage to because like this is completely foreign to me. And I'm walking through and somebody's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey," and they're like, "Are you?" And I'm like, "Do you watch the Humanist Report?" They're like, "No, you're Nick Branna, aren't you?" I'm like, "Oh no, you don't know who I am."
I don't see that.
Well, the very same week, it was really funny because I flattered myself inadvertently. I live in Oregon and we have legal pot shops. So I walk into a pot shop and this dude's like, "Hey, I know you." And I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" He's like, I can't figure out your name. And I'm like, "Do you watch any podcasts, the Humanist Report?" He's like, "No, but I got it. You're the guy who used to work at Blockbuster." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck. Yeah, that's right." So you don't, you don't know. So yeah, I'll take the standing ovation. That was a proud moment for me.
That's amazing. That was, and everybody, when I was saying you were coming on, everyone's like, "Oh my God, I love him." Because awesome. I don't know, you probably don't acknowledge it because it's you, but there's something so kind about you. And so you're just very, you're very caring with, you're like, you're a Bernie supporter. You know what I mean? How we're very we're empaths and things like that. It comes through.
That's awesome. Because I have no idea how I'm perceived because you can't judge yourself. Like watching things back, you hope you come across a certain way, but there's absolutely no way you can, escape your own subjectivity. So I always try. And I think that in spite of real life on Twitter, my Twitter persona, if you will, I come across as a jackass because half the time I'm pretty much sarcastic and people don't pick up on it. But in real life, people are like, "Yeah, Mike is pretty laid back and chill." At least that's what they tell me to my face,
I'm the same. I'm still really crass and outspoken regardless.
You have to be.
So down to and also I wanted to make note of that. I really enjoy when other independent media comes on and vice versa. Like I've been doing a lot of other podcasts and stuff because it's really important to support each other. So it's really awesome to have you on for that reason as well, because there's not that many of us out there. So we definitely want to, support each other. And so that's amazing. But anyway, I digress. Did you see the news about what Bernie just announced? Not his presidency.
I got excited for a second.
I know. I shouldn't have worded it like that.
Thanks, Joy.
He actually just stated that he's not going to be taking his paychecks for being a senator as long as the government shut down, because he wants to take care of the people of Vermont who are not able to work.
That's awesome. I think that's a class act move. And for anyone in Congress who can do that, it's completely admirable. I love that he's doing that. I don't expect someone like AOC to do that, who is a working class person who just got elected, who doesn't have any money saved up. But for someone like Bernie to do that, it's what you expect from Bernie. He has a big heart and he genuinely cares about people. And you just see it in everything. It's reflected, in his entire career. It's why I love Bernie.
Absolutely. So if you could pick his VP.
Yeah, so that's a tough one for me because I have two different options. The first option is my ideal dream scenario, which will never come to fruition, Nina Turner. I don't think there's any, every single person in the progressive community says Nina Turner. And it's because she not only is one of the best speech givers ever, but she's someone who could really help with that revolution aspect and rallying people. But I know that she probably doesn't want to be VP because who would want to serve in that high of a position? But in terms of who I think is a realistic option, it's really hard for me to say. I think that, I'm just inclined to say Elizabeth Warren, but she's disappointed me, and I don't know that. Yeah, no, I don't know.
You know how I feel about that.
I know, it's a really tough question for me in terms of who I think out of the people who would actually be his VP, who he would choose. And I just don't, it's hard to say, honestly. Barbara Lee would be phenomenal. Um,
Why
but yeah, I
do
don't
you vote
know.
for Pago, though? What's up with
I
that?
know. Yeah, I don't know.
That's
And that's why it's a
bananas.
tough question because you're not going to find, there's no way you're going to find anyone as progressive as Bernie Sanders unless you go in the House. But when you go to the House, I mean, someone like Ro Khanna, which would be phenomenal, there's going to be all the attacks that would probably dissuade Bernie from picking him because he's relatively new. This is only his second term. So there's going to be that inexperienced argument. So it's such a hard decision. He's got to pick someone who can carry on the progressive legacy, right? But I don't know. He's got to also try to ameliorate all of these attacks that will inevitably come about with whoever he picks. And he's still got to make sure that the progressive base is satisfied. You can't pick Hillary Clinton to be your VP. Not that he would do that, but just as an example. So it's a really tough question that I don't know that I have the answer to. Going back, I did a video way back in 2015 when I first started the podcast, and maybe it was 2016, but either way, I named people who I wanted to be his VP, and Elizabeth Warren back then was my number one choice, but someone who I said he should pick as a means of practicality was Kirsten Gillibrand. And I cringe now at that because I wasn't aware of her record, and I just kind of had this really superficial view of her. She doesn't seem like the worst of the worst. She's kind of like that, maybe that branch between progressives and the corporate Democratic establishment that would make them feel better about Bernie. But now, oh my God, the thought of her being VP would be awful. So I honestly don't know who would make a good VP for Bernie. It's a really tough thing for me. Obviously, I'm going to say Nina Turner, but that's not a realistic answer. So I'm kind of fence sitting here, and it's irritating me that I can't come up with something. But as I think through it, there's pros and cons the way out that I haven't done yet, and it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the fairest question because it's not something we can control. Mm-hmm. So it's more like a hypothetical, but a lot of people want Tulsi, but I'm going to tell all you guys in the comments, she's going to run. She will. I have literally zero doubt. So, I mean, saying he should pick her as a VP, well, unless she drops, that's not going to happen. So,
and I would support Tulsi as VP, but there was an article from The Intercept that recently came out that kind of shows, domestically, yeah, she's very progressive, but on foreign policy issues, she's not necessarily the best. And that worries me in terms of Bernie Sanders keeping the base. So I don't know, like I would support Tulsi and I would try to overlook those things that are admittedly problematic because I do love Tulsi, but it's still, Bernie has got to pick an option. And I hate to say it, that's kind of safe. Someone who's unapologetically progressive, but can kind of not be a target for attacks from the establishment because they're already going to throw everything they possibly can at him in the event he becomes the nominee. So I want him to pick a safe bet who's not going to be a distraction. And I honestly don't know who that person is at this point in time, but maybe throughout the course of the Democratic Party primary, we'll see someone kind of emerge as the front runner to be his VP. But for now, I don't know. It's so tough to say.
It is. And I think a lot of people will unfortunately have a rude awakening when they start seeing a lot of stuff from Tulsi's past.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wrote Bernard in the 2016 general, and I wrote her as VP. It's not that I hate her. It's not that, I met her. She's amazing. But she's going to have to, account for the things she's said and done in the past. And I think a lot of people are going to be, just kind of surprised. So, I mean, you probably know some of what I'm talking about.
I don't have like a very thorough understanding of it, but there's a lot of red flags that worry people for genuine reasons. And I could see why. And it kind of was a little bit off-putting to me as well, even though I still support her because domestically she's great. But that kind of gets me to reevaluate the way that I view Tulsi. Is she truly someone who would be president if on foreign policy issues she isn't as good as I had previously thought? So it's something that we do have to look over. I think that one thing that we can all agree on, even if we're not sure who would be a good VP, is that no matter who Bernie picks, they're not going to be as good as Bernie, because nobody's going to have that 3-decade-long record of them saying the same exact thing over and over again, So it's going to be someone who's not as good as Bernie. It's just a matter of who's the best bet. And that's why I kind of go back to Elizabeth Warren, because she's a safe option. She's not, someone who progressives are very enthusiastic about for pretty good reasons, because I'm never going to get over her not endorsing Bernie. That's just something that was such a cowardly thing to do. But, in terms of trying to thwart attacks and being just the safe bet, I mean, she wouldn't be necessarily a bad option. And I think that all of the establishment-minded, Democratic Party loyalists will probably feel better about it, because she is someone who she describes herself as a capitalist. So maybe that would kind of make the socialist boogeyman argument a little bit less problematic. But again, it's like Elizabeth Warren as a VP in 2020, I feel different about that than I would about her as VP in 2016. Knowing what we know, knowing that she ignored Dakota Access Pipeline protesters, knowing that she went along with Donald Trump's military budget, knowing that she, posed for photo ops with Benjamin Netanyahu. There's a lot that irritates me, but there's going to be someone that he's going to pick who we're going to have issues with. It's just a given. We can't clone Bernie, which I wish we could, but we can't clone him and make him his own VP. So it's going to be tough either way.
It will. You're absolutely right. I don't know. It's like it really is a clusterfuck. There's so many different ways things could go. Like it's like SATs again, just trying to figure out the trajectory of excuse me, I'm looking at the comments. Okay, now see, I didn't want to start that because now people are like, what's in her past? Google is your friend.
Yeah, there's an Intercept article that is very thorough, and it's not a smear. Like, I don't take it as a smear piece. It's a nuanced look at some of the problems, her ties to Hindu nationalists in India, for example, that are going to be red flags for not only progressives, but just people on the left in general. And even if I could overlook that and support her, I want to be strategic. Not that I have any say in who Bernie chooses, because I want to beat Trump. Because even if I think that Bernie's the best bet to defeat Donald Trump, I've said this before, I think that an incumbent President Donald Trump will be more difficult to defeat than a candidate President Donald Trump, because we know that the way that voters think, the rational voter always tries to stick with what they know rather than go with someone who they don't know, who could be scary, because change scares people. So I want us to be super strategic if Bernie gets the nomination. And we really just have to have some long conversations, within the community and with ourselves to decide who would be the best bet. And again, we're not going to decide this, but, it's got to be someone who is good and who's safe. And I hate using the word safe because it sounds like I'm kind of compromising and selling out my own ideas, but I want Bernie in the White House. And we've got to, once we get him through a Democratic Party primary, we've got to make sure that we increase our odds in whatever way possible.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts about the other candidates? Say, Kamala.
I don't like Kamala at all. And it's because there's an article, I can't name the outlet. She basically, I don't know if maybe I'm confusing her with Kirsten Gillibrand, who went to Wall Street Execs. I think that's Kirsten Gillibrand who talked about.
Oh no, she did
2020.
too.
She did too. Okay, yeah. So, and look, I will say this about Kamala Harris. She is more politically astute than Hillary Clinton, and the bar is low. So you can't not be if you're in politics, because Hillary Clinton is probably the worst politician ever. But she at least acknowledges that if you want to get through a Democratic Party primary, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to have a chance unless you embrace Medicare for all and whatnot. And there's going to be a lot of people who will make the case for her and say, well, maybe you are just a Bernie bro because you got what you wanted. You have someone who is saying the same things that Bernie's saying. So why wouldn't you just go with her? And my reason is because there's a thing called taking a policy position for purposes of political expediency. Bernie Sanders has had the same fucking policy ideas since he was, the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. probably since he was 12. Who knows? And that consistency and that foresight is something that is really important. Like, I don't want someone who's going to get in there and be an adequate president. We need a game changer. We need a new FDR. And Kamala Harris is not that. Bernie Sanders might be that. It's not a guarantee that he's going to get in there and he, will actually bring about this substantial change. But is he our best bet? Absolutely, without question. So, I mean, it's Bernie for me all the way. And it's not because, there's this cult of personality and he's just so charismatic that I'm drawn to him. He's an old man, but he's saying things that I like. And that's really as simple as it gets. In the event AOC was old enough to run, she's to the left of Bernie. I would probably opt for her instead just because she's more liberal than Bernie and I'm more liberal than Bernie. But it's about the policy. That's what it comes down to. And Bernie has the track record that is unmatched, really, in politics. He has the credibility. And I don't want to worry about someone. I don't want to babysit the president. We're going to have to put pressure on Bernie, even if he wins and becomes president, but less so than anyone else. And I think that he has the right instincts and, he has the courage to stand up for what he believes in. I can't say the same for people like Kamala Harris, who didn't prosecute Steve Mnuchin and took money from him, when she was attorney general in California. So it's just a matter of trust. Who do you trust? And I get the point about, yes, policies are important. That's what you guys said. So what now? I get it, right? It's seemingly hypocritical, but we have our reasons. Why would we want someone who is a Bernie clone? Why not just go for the real thing?
Very good point. Absolutely. So what's your, oh, well, first on that note, you guys, I see, Kamala is a cop and stuff in the comments. So also I'm having two people of color on next week to discuss from California to discuss how harmful she has been to people in California because she has made profit on incarcerating Black and brown people for
that'll
years.
Be interesting. Yeah, that'll be really interesting because I don't know very much about her record other than the few blemishes, but I think that we've got to do a deep dive. And that's a really important start.
She is known for that in California. So I want to, instead of me talking about it, I wanted two people of color from California who have seen this, who are activists against it, to come on and be like, let me break it down. This is what's going on. So that'll be next week. But anyway, what about, okay, first of all, I digress, but this is so bananas. Did you see that article yesterday that says that Rosario Dawson is dating Cory Booker?
I did see that.
What the fuck is that?
Is that true?
I don't know.
I didn't read it. I just saw the headline and I'm like, interesting. I mean, I guess that because Rosario Dawson, she's actually a Bernie supporter, and I don't know. She might have been a Jill Stein supporter too. But I mean, if anything, maybe she could influence him to be less shitty. So maybe I still don't like Cory Booker at all. He's such a phony. He is a political huckster, and he, like, the thing that irritates me about him is he's so transparent. Like, wherever there's a camera, he will dive in front of that fucking camera. And it irritates me so much because he's trying so hard to be the next Obama. Or tried to be the next like Clinton type. And you see it, like, he uses his little, and I will tell you, I am strong for justice. It's like, shut the fuck up. Like, you're not doing anything. You voted against a bill that would have allowed us to import drugs from Canada, and you only flipped once we gave you shit for it. Fuck off. I can't stand him. He's such a phony. And that's like 90% of the 99% really of the Democratic Party, 97%. Let me be a little bit extra fair. And I hate it so much.
Yeah, he's absolutely disgusting. And Bernard's coming out with that bill again. He just posted about it today. Good. So we'll see how these people vote, because I'm always, looking at stuff like that. I'm always like, okay, let's see. Like the $700 trillion war budget increase, you have the only people who didn't were Bernard and a couple Republicans. The whole Democratic Party, all of them.
What they don't realize, and it's puzzling to me that they don't realize this, is that we are on every single vote like stank on shit. If you fuck up, we'll know it immediately. Like, we're all hyper focused and paying
Exactly.
attention. So if you want to run for president, if you have, you know, greater aspirations, then stop fucking up. Stop voting for these bloated military budgets. If you claim to be part of the resistance, then resist. Stop going along with what Donald Trump wants. You know, it's so frustrating because I feel like we have to babysit politicians. Kyle Kalinske made this point a few days ago. He talked about with the PAYGO thing. We have to babysit politicians, essentially, even people who are supposed to be allies. Why do we have to babysit these grown adults? Just do the right thing. It's not that hard. Just have a spine. Do the right thing. Just do it. I'm gonna end up having to quote the Shia LaBeouf meme. Just do it. You know, it's irritating.
That's a really good point. We shouldn't have to chase people down. I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, so I go to the Capitol steps all the time.
Good
They're
for
like,
you.
oh shit, here she comes.
Good for you.
Yeah, it works for me. So what do you think? Oh, I wanted to tell you this too. Did you hear how Elizabeth Warren hasn't been talking about Medicare for all at her rallies she's been doing in Iowa?
Yeah, I saw something that Dave Weigel had tweeted out about her. She was asked a question and she didn't cite Medicare for all. And that is a really big red flag for me with Elizabeth Warren, because shortly after she came out and co-sponsored Bernie's Medicare for all bill, and she made this really impassioned speech that she posted to her YouTube channel with really nice music and whatnot. She ended up coming out with a compromise bill that fixes the ACA. And I don't understand why you would waste political capital on anything healthcare related that is not Medicare for all. It shows that she's not willing to stand up and plant her feet in the ground and just refuse to budge. And that's one thing that really worries me about Elizabeth Warren. Even if I think that ideologically speaking, she's better than Obama, I worry that functionally she's going to be another Obama, because Obama didn't really have much desire to fight the Republicans, and he didn't really want to. You know, to be honest, he was, as he puts it, he governed as a moderate Republican. And I worry that functionally Elizabeth Warren wouldn't be that different. I mean, I think she'd be better than Obama, to be fair, but at the same time, like, you can be right on the policy positions, and I love that. But if you don't have the courage to fight, then what does it matter that you took the right positions anyway? Like, you need to be a fighter. So that is a gigantic red flag. And to me, really, Medicare for all is the #1 issue for me besides climate change. If you don't pass that litmus test, then I don't vote for you. It's as simple as that. Because I live in a very safe blue state. So by default, I'm voting green. So you got to win me over. And if she is going to continue with this trend of maybe trying to play nice with the establishment, then she won't have my vote. I mean, starting out, if she were the nominee, I'd vote for her as we stand currently. But if she doesn't back Medicare for all explicitly, I cannot get behind that, because I refuse to allow the Overton window to continue shifting to the right on healthcare when we've made so much progress, when 70% of people support Medicare for all, including 52% of Republicans. I refuse to let all of this progress we made just get destroyed.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And people like myself who have medical needs, who are always in and out of the hospital, appreciate candidates who will stand up and fight for this, because it's not just a thing. Like, people are dying. It's not an exaggeration. Somebody just brought up the point of voting for millionaires, and that's one of the other things that's so amazing about Bernie, because he would have been the first non-millionaire president in decades.
Which is crazy.
It's insane. Like, Warren tried to be really cute with her beer on camera. It was adorable. But here's the thing. Her house is worth $2.4 million. Is
it really? Holy shit, I didn't know that.
$2.4 million. Yeah, somebody said 5, so I fact checked it. 2.4.
Wow.
She got a discount. So she's, drinking that beer, like, she's just so, 99%. And it's like, girl, you poured that shit out and put some sparkling water in there. And, it's just so...
Yeah. That was really cringeworthy to me, because it's very clear that she is not being authentic, and she's listening to perhaps the same people or same type of people, same strategists rather, that instructed Hillary Clinton to say, Pokemon, go to the polls, and posted that Snapchat about, I'm just chilling here at Cedar Rapids, with her little beverage thing that said Chillery. And it's like, this is not how you win people over. By pretending to be authentic, you're showing that you're inauthentic. Just like, stop. Like, and I made the point, like, you don't have to do, like, I don't need to see you drinking beer, Elizabeth Warren. I need to hear you talking about policies. I don't care. Like, I don't want to see you go up against Ninja playing Fortnite. I don't give a shit about any of that. Just talk Medicare for all. Just talk policy to me. Beat me over the head with it until I'm sick of hearing about it. That's what I want. That's it. It's super simple. But they don't understand that it's that simple. They overcomplicate it because they have these jackass Democratic Party strategists that try to, like, you know, they'll request, oh, well, maybe we should stage this or this and this photo op. It's not like, they just try to make themselves seem important when they're feeding Democrats horrible advice. It drives me nuts. How every single Democratic strategist hasn't been fired is beyond puzzling to me, because they are fucking morons.
I could totally do that job so well. No, they wouldn't want me because I'm not voting.
No, because if you have good advice, you're not qualified.
You will not bow down to me. You're not hired.
Exactly.
So people are just looking through the comments quick. What about Biden? How do you feel about him?
I will not vote for Biden. He's someone, if he's the nominee, I don't vote for him, because he's someone who we know exactly how he would operate. I mean, he was Obama's VP. I mean, for the love of God, he was insulting millennials, saying, oh, give me a break, you know, when we were talking about student loan debt. Yeah, it's nice for him to say, you know, one, because he's rich, but two, when he was growing up and when he got a college education, it was subsidized by the government. He didn't have to worry about student loan debt. For me, I can't keep up with my student loan debt. I'm going to have that until I die. You know, that's not just me. It's everyone who is a millennial. So when they say give me a break, I mean, you grew up in a completely different economic climate than we're growing up in. Like, things have changed. So when we're complaining, we have legitimate grievances. So to be that out of touch and to be, you know, that entrenched in the establishment, I can't. Like, I would be shocked if he made it through the primary, but he's someone who a lot of people would view as safe, when in actuality, that's not the case. I think he would risk losing to Donald Trump, which I don't want to happen. You know, I mean, I wouldn't vote for Joe Biden, but of course, if he was going up against Trump, I would want him to beat Trump, because I think that the Supreme Court really is going to be the most important focus of this election. But if I don't have to vote for someone in a safe state, I'm not voting for someone. And Joe Biden is someone who I couldn't pull the lever for, because he's awful, you know, but I don't want to risk it. Like, I really feel like if we want someone who's going to be the best suited to beat Trump, there's no other candidate than Bernie Sanders. And the polls showed that. And if, you know, he runs again, which I think he probably will, almost certainly, then I think it's going to reflect that too, because people trust Bernie. He's the most popular politician in the country. And like, I don't want to risk putting up a corporate Democrat and losing to Donald Trump, because I think that not only do we need to defeat the rise of fascism, and defeating, you know, our fascist president would bode well for the rest of the world who's seeing the rise of right-wing demagogues. But the Supreme Court at this point, every single time I see an article about Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the hospital, part of me dies. Like, I volunteered before to be her blood boy, and that offer still stands. Like, I'm so worried about the Supreme Court, because if it flips, like, at this point, we have to talk about court packing, but even, you know, if not, it's going to be hell. So the Supreme Court is my focus. I don't want to risk it. Democrats probably don't really care about it. They're not thinking about it like in that way about the Supreme Court, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just can't get over his treatment of Anita Hill. I
never will get over that. Never.
It's so abhorrent. And I posted an article, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, of him being interviewed in back during civil rights time, and he was joking about how he wasn't involved because he doesn't look good in tie-dye. And I don't really think that's that funny,
No.
You know, and I'm like, okay, here's Biden, and then here's Bernie. You know, it's just it's
Yeah.
really gross to, you know, joke about that. He's very xenophobic. I've been posting videos of some of the stuff he's been saying, and it's so gross.
Yeah. And I didn't know about that aspect. Like, I hated him because he supported the crime bill and the bankruptcy bill. But, you know, as we learn more about him, you know, the xenophobia is something that I'm now finding out about. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. I can't, with how much xenophobia is just, it's rampant everywhere in society currently. I cannot support anyone who's even just a hint of xenophobic, especially now. Like, we need someone who's going to take a stand. And he doesn't have, you know, morality. He takes policy positions for purposes of political expediency. I mean, in 2016, he was giving Bernie Sanders credit, and now he's positioning himself as the anti-Bernie because he thinks that that's what will help, you know, propel him to the head of the crowd. He could be the new Hillary, which is stupid, but, you know, that's what he thinks he needs to do. Because if you are running for president, you do the right thing that will get you elected. You run as a progressive. Kamala Harris sees it, Cory Booker sees it, Kirsten Gillibrand sees it, but Joe Biden is doing the opposite. It's because he doesn't know. And, you know, against Donald Trump, he would fall flat on his fucking face. He would talk tough, but he has such a harmful past that I think that Trump can use that against him, even if Donald Trump is in his and I don't want to risk it. So Joe Biden is a hard pass for me.
Yeah, I agree. Somebody wanted to know if you would support Ojeda.
No. I absolutely love that he is pro-labor and talks about unions, and I like that he's going to be part of the conversation because I do think he can really shift the debate in a positive way. If you voted for Donald Trump, I can't vote for you. If you voted for Mitt Romney, no, sorry. I feel like someone who is going to be president, they've got to have foresight. They've got to be able to predict who's a bullshitter and who isn't. And if you just voted for Donald Trump 2 years ago and you couldn't see that someone who's a blatant fraud was duping over voters, then I have absolutely no faith that you are going to actually do the right thing. I mean, I don't want to get a left-wing equivalent of Trump where you get in as this populist and then you do the bidding of the establishment. Like, I want someone who's going to get in there who is an actual outsider who did not help Trump get elected, who's going to fight for progressive policies. And another thing about Ojeda that really frustrates me is that when he was running in West Virginia for the House of Representatives, and I supported that bid unequivocally, but he took the position of, I support a public option, not single payer. And now as he runs for president, he's saying, well, I support Medicare for all. Well, which is it? Like, see, I can't, we don't have time to deal with this. Like, it's a national emergency. This is a real national emergency healthcare. Like, it's life or death. So I just can't take a chance on people like him. So I wouldn't support Richard Ojeda, but I do, like, I will say this. I want to be nuanced here. I appreciate what he's doing. He adds a lot to the conversation, but there's a very huge trust deficit that he has that he's not going to overcome in my book.
Yeah, I think that's totally valid. Somebody else asked about Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura.
I like Jesse Ventura. I think he's a kooky old man, but we already have one who's running.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like everyone who's progressive loves Jesse Ventura. And he kind of would be like the left-wing equivalent of Donald Trump, but he has a show on RT, so you already can anticipate the smears that would come from him. You know, he's this Russian troll. Yeah, you know, I don't not like Jesse Ventura. We'll leave it there, right? I'm gonna default to Bernie, but you know, he would be interesting.
Well, the thing that's so bizarre to me about him is for the past few years, he's been with the Greens, but he said if he runs, he'll be a Dem. So I guess that's kind of where I'm, you know, a little confused, like where.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I can kind of see him rationalizing that. There was a really great interview that Jimmy Dore did with Ralph Nader, and he talked about like the differences as to why someone like Bernie would run as a Democrat and not an independent. And I think he made a really valid point that, you know, if you want to run and you actually want to be viable and you want to get on that debate stage and you want press coverage, I mean, it sucks to have to run with a shitty party like Democrats, but it's kind of your guaranteed way to actually be viable. You know, and look, I love the Green Party. It hurts me to say that. And I vote for Green Party candidates. But when I vote for a Green Party candidate, I'm not, you know, hoping that, you know, there's going to be this weird scenario where they win. Like, I'm trying to get them to 5% so we can increase viability. But with that being said, you know, third parties, they're important in terms of reshifting the Overton window and keeping the Democratic Party in check. But if you want someone to be president, you have to run in the Democratic Party. There's no other way that you can be viable. I mean, you could try to run as an independent. We've seen people be relatively successful, like Ross Perot. But I mean, in the history of our country, it's been Democrat or Republican. And at this point, I honestly don't care about the labels. I just want Medicare for all. Like, it's getting, like, I'm simplifying my policies and politics rather a lot more, giving Medicare for all anyway. Just do that, you know. And if you run as a Green, as a Democrat, whatever, but running as a Democrat will make it easier. And it's just an unfortunate fact of reality, living in a two-party system that's shitty. But with that being said, I always push for electoral reform. There's a bill, HR 30551, I believe, or 57. I actually brought this to the attention of my representative. She said she'd look over it. Never heard back, of course, so I'll be following up. But it's something that everyone should definitely look into. This is a bill that Ro Khanna co-sponsored. I believe that Jim McGovern is the sponsor. I'm not 100% sure. But basically, it ends gerrymandering. It moves to mixed member proportional representation, I'm sorry. And also, it institutes ranked choice voting nationwide. This would be amazing. It wouldn't guarantee that we'd have a third or a fourth party that would be viable, but it would make them exponentially more likely to at least start getting seats in Congress, which is a very, very important first step to having a third and a fourth party. I think we need like 5 or 6 parties, not just the third party. But that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, no, right on. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Ro 3 times, and my most recent was December, and he was telling me about that, and I'm like, holy shit, like, ranked choice would kind of take away a lot of the vote shaming, which is pretty much my biggest issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I interviewed Zach Ringelstein. He's from Maine, and he had ranked choice voting in his race. So it's interesting seeing how, you know, how it worked out. But also, you know, when it comes to people running, there are people who are saying the more people on the stage who are running, the better. What's your theory on that?
You know, it's a double-edged sword, because I like this ideal, this democratic ideal, small d democratic ideal, that you know, more voices will inevitably be better and will improve whoever the Democratic Party nominee is. But at the same time, we have to be pragmatic, and I don't like using that word because it's a dirty word when I hear Democrats use that word, but pragmatic in the sense that we as progressives should do everything in our power to consolidate votes, meaning don't split the vote. Don't maybe think, well, I personally like this person better. I mean, you could vote for whoever you want, and I wouldn't vote or shame you, but understand that if we want to make it through a field, a Democratic Party primary that's going to have approximately 152 candidates, we need to make sure that we all line up behind one person, Bernie Sanders, and the establishment side splits the votes. That's our best bet. That's our best hope. But with that being said, you know, someone running isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, I think, again, Richard Ojeda, for example, wouldn't support him. I like that he's contributing to the discussion. But yeah, I'm worried about vote splitting. I know that other people are less worried about this, but I'm basically hypersensitive to anything, especially after the shenanigans we saw in 2016. I'm anticipating the worst of the worst. So whatever advantage we can give ourselves, that's what I'm doing. Now, I want to be clear here, because I hate vote shaming. So I'm not trying to shame people and say, get in line behind Bernie Sanders, but I'm just saying, you know, because I would never say that. I'd be a hypocrite to say that. But I'm saying, if you want to improve our odds, it's best if we all consolidate our vote. That's all I'm saying. I think it's really important. But if you don't want to support Bernie and you're progressive, just participation in general is important. Voting is important, because we live in a democracy. And with the rate to which people don't vote, that's incredibly harmful for democracy. You know, I have a political science background, and that was always one of the biggest killers to democracy is apathy. You know, when you look at countries around the world, when democracy starts to break down, it's when you see widespread apathy, because that can be exploited. And that's what I'm worried about. So participation is inherently good, but just keep in mind, guys, that if we split the votes between two prominent progressives, then that could pave the way for a corporate Democrat, you know, so
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things to weigh out.
Yeah, in 2018, I interviewed over 100 candidates from across the country. So I've seen, you know, I've had Greens, Independents. I've even had a few Republicans with Bernie tattoos who are just running that way strategically, because their state was red, you know, and they were kind of bringing back like the, you know, the old school like FDR type stuff, but as with an R next to their name, and they did well. So I've had like every kind of candidate, but the one thing I learned through all of those is that the more people who ran, even the winners were getting like 20% max. So in theory, what can happen is there's 10 people on the stage, 10 people running. You divide that, winner gets 20%. Now each person gets like one delegate. And you know what I mean? Like it's plausible that we get to July and there's still like 5 people.
Yeah.
It's plausible. So it's just kind of, I don't know, before I did my show, I wouldn't have thought of it that way, but just seeing it happen so much with my candidates I've had, I'm just like, holy shit, like we could end up with so many people at the end. Whereas last time we had 2, you know, it's going to be interesting. I don't know.
I'm going to be glued to my computer and my television. Like I remember still distinctly when I was watching the Iowa primary unfold, I had like 7 panic attacks that day. And I'm not being hyperbolic. Like I actually had panic attacks as I saw the number tick from like 0.1 to 0.2, you know, and back and forth. And it's going to be worse this time because the stakes are so much more higher, because now we have a nightmare in the White House that we've got to defeat, and the best person is Bernie. But the same old people are coming out to smear him. So the stakes are higher, and we're all a lot more impatient. I'm going to be like, I shouldn't be a political commentator during that time. I need someone to talk me down. Like, you know, I don't know if you watched The Office. Yeah, no. Do you remember the episode of The Office where Michael Scott was worried about if Holly was still engaged, and if he was engaged, or if she was still engaged, then that means that his chances with her would be off. But if she wasn't, then that means that he'd be excited and he'd have a chance. And either way, he had to talk himself down. That's me. I'm going to have to film videos for myself to talk myself down no matter what happens, because I'm going to be a wreck and I won't be able to handle it. And I need to be like, when AOC won, for example, I did not sleep that night. When net neutrality was repealed, I did not sleep that night. So I'm going to have to do something to like bring myself down, like fucking meditation or something, because it's going to be hard.
Ativan is my friend. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. I'm gonna stock up on whatever I can, pot, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll read, you know, more comments off the air, guys, and you know, I encourage you to as well, Mike, because it seems like so many people definitely understand where we're coming from. What is your hope for, you know, at the end of this, you know, say come 2020, what is your hope ideally, and also realistically?
Yeah. So ideally, my hope is that Bernie Sanders obviously becomes the nominee, but more so than that, I want him to catalyze party realignment. This has happened multiple times. And what that means is he becomes the nominee, and members of the Democratic Party establishment, the centrists, or really the right-wingers, but the people like Joe Manchin, for example, they find him so unacceptable, so bad to their brand, that they flee the party, they go to Republicans. And oftentimes, you know, with these party realignment situations, it really reshapes political dialogue in America. It happened, you know, with the civil rights. So what would happen is if all of these corporate Democrats flee and go to the Republicans, that would remake two parties dramatically, because that would make the Republican Party a little bit more moderate, still right wing, very right wing, but having the, you know, having these corporate Democrats would make them less crazy. And it would make the Democratic Party a lot more liberal, because it would be the party of Bernie Sanders, in the same way that Donald Trump kind of made it the party of Donald Trump, the Republican Party, that is the party of Donald Trump. Now, there wasn't a party realignment with Donald Trump. And I remember back in 2008, political scientists were trying to speculate, since Obama ran as, you know, this left-wing progressive firebrand, did he do something that may have started a party realignment or the process of that? And the answer is a definite no. So my hope is Bernie can do that. Ideally speaking, that may not be the case. It probably won't be the case. But ideally speaking, we get Bernie Sanders and we get two things accomplished, just two: Medicare for all and a Green New Deal. If we could get those things done, that would be great. Another thing, ideally, is that he really does start a political revolution, and not a regime change revolution, nothing like that, but a revolution in the way that FDR had a revolution, where his New Deal was so popular, he got elected 4 times. Not that I'm advocating for that with Bernie, but it was popular, and Republicans couldn't even come out and say they were against the New Deal because they would get obliterated. We need that, but with Bernie Sanders. That's my ultimate hope. Now, all of this is speculation, and I'm just, you know, hoping for the best case scenario. But if it's going to happen, if party realignment or a political revolution is going to happen, it's only going to be under Bernie and no one else. I'm sure of.
Yes, I agree. Well, and you know, that's a really, really I'm sorry, Peter Douche is in the comments. Do you know who that is?
Hey, I do. What's up, Peter Douche?
I've had him twice and I just can't. I shouldn't even look over there because he just oh my God.
I did see, I think I saw Pat the Burner's face pop up too.
Yeah, he's playing,
I don't have the comments.
Roles
cool,
right now.
Like that. Nice.
Damn it, Pat. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, now that you brought up Peter Douche, funny story. I'm going to be in the real Peter Dow's book. So I was going to have him on my show a while ago, and we were going to kind of friendly debate, you know, establishment versus progressives. And for whatever reason that fell through, and we're still planning something. But I kind of learned that after his political awakening, he's kind of a cool dude. And it sounds weird saying that because I've made videos making fun of him, and he asked for a quote to put in his new book. And I think that he's kind of come around, which is important because he has a lot of sway on the establishment side. So my hope is that, you know, he can convince those other establishment figures that the progressive way is the way to go. And, you know, I feel like Peter Douche has got to have part of, you know, whatever political reawakening that Peter Dow has had, because, you know, what Peter Dow was talking about before, some of his tweets were like almost parody, like self-satire. So the Peter Douche account has had to have some influence. I'd like to think. I don't know.
Yeah, you know, and people were talking about the other day when he was on again. And the thing is, I think there's like two theories. A, is it genuine, or B, is it him just reeling us in because he's about to go hardcore Shillery again with like Kamala? Like, I'm going to win these progressives over, and then I'm going to be like, boom, you're sexist, you're racist, you suck. You know, kind of like, my guard's up. But I do still, when I see him, I check myself to make sure if it's real, because sometimes I'm just like, oh, no, he didn't say that.
Yeah, and look, I was, because I couldn't really, I'm the same as you. I wasn't sure if what we were seeing was real, and I didn't want to inadvertently legitimize someone who was going to be destructive. But we had like an hour-long phone conversation just talking about politics, and the conversation was actually not as bad as I thought it would be. But we always hit road bumps whenever we got to the Democratic Party, right? Because we can talk about Republicans all day long, but when it comes to, you know, the Bernie Hillary thing, there's a lot there. But I think that he really I do believe that maybe there's some posturing there, but I think it is genuine for the most part. I think he just sees that progressives are right. Like, we've been proving right. And the establishment figures who don't agree with us, they just have cognitive dissonance. Now, maybe that's just me being arrogant, but I don't know. That's kind of the way that I see it. But I'm still cautious, right? Because Peter Dow and like we exchanged blows with each other. He didn't attack me directly, but I took his attacks personal because I'm progressive. Like, somebody on Reddit described me as the quintessential Bernie bro. I mean, kind of. I'm not sexist or racist or anything like that or homophobic, obviously. But, you know, I like Bernie Sanders. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm still skeptical, but my whole point in trying to have a conversation with him and maybe bringing him on the show is trying to let people know that it's like, we're not going to shut you out if you said something wrong. Like, we want to embrace people who are willing to be progressive and change, because I do think that people can evolve and change their views. And, I think that's important, you know, for winning over allies. So if he's going to be an ally in 2020, hell, well, you know, welcome aboard, you know, if it's genuine. You know, so that's my take, but people definitely had, you know, strong opinions of that either way. You know, and I totally respect that, and I see where they're coming from.
Yeah, my guard is up, but I'm still kind of hopeful.
Yeah, I saw a post on the Chapo subreddit. They're like, Peter Dow is going on the Humanist Report, guys. What? It's like Satan and Jesus having a conversation, like the two polar opposites. Maybe there's a better analogy, but like, yeah, it was just really weird. But we've kind of become like cool with each other, and talk from time to time, voice opinions. I'll share things like I shared the Barbara Lee thing with him when I was trying to circulate my petition to make her speaker, and he's like, "Oh, Barbara Lee would be great." So, you know, if he's going to be an ally, welcome to the team. But I think Peter Douche has got to have some credit there for trying to get him to change his opinion, you know, so credit and shout out to Pat the Burner, aka Peter Douche, who always makes us laugh. That dude is That dude is funny.
Oh my God, our chats. You know what, Pat, next book you do, just put our chats, just put screenshots, because they're hilarious. We're both really crass, so it works.
That's good.
I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you're under the weather, and I went way over what I told you I was going to.
You're okay. Yeah, I should have probably said that beforehand. I'm under the weather, and you know when you have a cold and you just like you feel like you can't think straight. So before we went live, I told Joy, I'm like, if I start to ramble, which I will, I won't get offended if you just tell me to shut the fuck up and have to rein me in, because I ramble anyway, but just not being able to think straight, just having this cold, it's like sometimes I'm just gonna talk and I'm gonna start on a certain path, and I may not know where I'm gonna end up, but you know, if you note that, then just stop me.
I'm just relishing that you're here. I mean, I don't care. Just keep going. So you guys, Mike he feels bad because when I sent him the link to tonight's show, he saw that I had messaged him over a year ago to come on, and he never really saw it.
Yeah,
I could tell the bubble wasn't.
You could see if somebody has read something. No, I wasn't ghosting Joy, and I actually didn't see that she wanted to have me on until Stephen Jaffe had tweeted something to me about it, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Because I'm always down for promoting other like Joy said, like we've got to help each other out, because there's not a lot of people doing it. Like there's a couple dozen people doing progressive political commentary, so like it's a necessity, you know, to team up every once in a while. And I think that, you know, we've got to cultivate this community, because I feel like, you know, more and more as time goes by, the progressive community is becoming factionalized and fractured in a number of different ways, you know? So I think it's good that we kind of show unity. And that's a word that sounds dirty because Democrats just completely shit on that word. But, you know, for progressives, unity is important, you know?
It really is. 100%. Absolutely. As far as, you know, leaving our audience with closing thoughts, what do you want them to take away?
I will say this, and I try to emphasize this on my show. When Bernie Sanders announces, go absolutely insane. Donate the $27, buy the merch, be so obnoxious that everyone in your neighborhood knows about Bernie, because I kind of feel like this is our last chance to get someone who's a real progressive, believe it or not. And there's going to be more Bernies to come along. But they're going to see that, you know, being progressive and what he did is, it makes them viable. So we're not going to be able to differentiate the phonies from the real deal. And Bernie's kind of our last bet. We've got 12 years to act on climate change. We have 70% support for Medicare for all. The time to get his agenda implemented is now. So if you can, phone bank for Bernie Sanders, canvas for Bernie Sanders, be a lunatic for Bernie Sanders, but don't turn people off. But you know what I mean? You know, do what you can to promote the message. Start easy. Start with your family. That's what I did in 2015. I converted every single person in my family, except for my brother, to Bernie. Got all of them to support Bernie. Got my nieces and nephews who were turning old enough to vote to register. That was the easiest. And then I started to convince other people, my colleagues. Just start small. And if we all do that, it could have a tremendous impact. And I don't like saying the word tremendous because it's a Trumpian word, but we really could have a tremendous impact, you know, if you will.
Huge. Make it huge.
Huge.
And also, you guys, put Bernie banners on your profile pics on Facebook and Twitter. Even something like that, you know, people notice it. Also, this Saturday, there's over 400 house parties happening in over 40 states. I'm having one here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at my place, which I'll definitely have in the basement, of course, but over 400. So when people say that, like, you know, oh, he doesn't have the same kind of support, 400 house parties. Some of them have up to 30 people each. So
that's huge.
This Saturday. So if you guys want to see if there's one by you, go to organizingforbernie.com or on Facebook or on Twitter, and you tap on the map and it gives you all the locations and the distances. But that's 4 to 6. We're going to have a huge conference call to talk about things strategically, and also do a rain dance or something to help tell him to hurry the hell up.
I know. I'm going to have a video this week where I end it saying, run! Like, just stop making us wait.
Run, Bernie, run!
Run.
Seriously. Yeah, I'm really bad with that. I have no patience.
Well, you know what it is once Elizabeth Warren announced, I'm like, oh, Bernie has to announce like 5 minutes ago. You know, it's just do it. Just do it, Bernie. You're killing us all. And I hate saying things like that because it really does, like, I feel like it contributes to this idea that there's this cult of personality. But we all know that that's not what this is about. It's all about the policies. Bernie Sanders is someone who's an old man who doesn't have much charisma, but you know, he's kooky, so I guess he has that going for him, but it's not a cult of personality. It's a cult of policy. And that's what this is all about. So, yeah, he needs to hurry the hell up and announce.
Yes, absolutely. I'll quote you on that.
Yes.
I feel like this is what I'm taking away. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I fucking love you. I adore you.
Thank you.
I have goosebumps. I'm so, like, okay, it's cheesy, but I'm really honored that you chose to come on my show, just because, like I said, you've really inspired me. So this is
thank you.
amazing.
That means so much. And thank you for having me. I truly, truly appreciate it. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much or say anything stupid.
No, you were great. And people are even saying that, like, oh, you know. And you know what? I never noticed, but you really resemble Dave Navarro. I actually never noticed that.
Okay, I'm blanking on his name right now.
He's Addiction, Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I never noticed, but tonight I do.
I can't picture his face right now, and I know who that person is, but I won't
just
talk
look
any
at yourself. But like,
I got in trouble before because I didn't know who a certain singer was. I can't remember the name. And it was one of like my first couple of videos. I don't even know his name now, so I'm not even gonna try. And people were very angry at me that I did not know his name, but or that I didn't know him. Turns out I was familiar with his music. I just didn't know who he was, but because I said, I remember what it was now. So let me try to not butcher this. I did a video about celebrities that supported Bernie Sanders. And one of them was some folk singer or country singer who's Canadian. And I said, oh, this person supports Bernie. And I'm like, I don't know who this is, but cool. And people were so angry. That was my first Aleppo moment, if you will, where people, they lost a lot of trust in me. So I've built up that faith again that I'm not completely illiterate when it comes to pop culture. So I shouldn't speak too much about Dave Navarro.
Who the hell
I think I know
was
who
it?
he is, though. I can't remember.
Oh my God, Mike! Jesus, I have no idea. All I
I'm
can
so
think
bad
of
with
is
this
like
stuff.
Willie Nelson or something, but
No,
he's
it's not Willie Nelson. Yeah, I know who Willie Nelson. It's not Willie Nelson. And I know people are gonna dig up the video now, and it's gonna be a tragedy relived. I'm just really bad with this type of stuff. I'm good with like faces and like I can remember like their songs. Never ever can remember like their names and whatnot. So yeah, I shouldn't have mentioned that.
I'm gonna have to Google it.
Yeah, you can just go through the comments and you'll see. Yeah,
How the fuck
people were not happy.
So and so is.
Like, how the fuck do you not know who this person is? And I'm like, I don't know.
Oh, you're the greatest. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. Thank you guys for watching. I have some really awesome shows coming up next week. So I'll be posting the promos for them shortly. But again, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Having me.
Get some rest. Get some sleep.
I will. I'm going to go edit, and then I'm going to get to bed early tonight.
Yes. I will message you once they do the, thumbnail screenshot thing and get it up on YouTube. I'll send you the link.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, because I'll share all of this around. I tweeted it out, so hopefully some of my viewers know about this, but I will share it like crazy too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Much love to you, Mike, and to you guys as well. Everybody have a great night. Bernie 2020.
Yes.
All right, we are good to go. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, that was fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And now that we actually are in contact, then don't hesitate to reach out. Don't be a stranger. And I've got to try to bring you on my show sometime too. I'm trying to figure out a way to collaborate with progressives that is less just like a conversation and more like where they are included in like a portion of a video. So I will probably reach out to you for that. I've got some ideas marinating, but yeah. We'll be in touch.
God, I don't even know if I could handle that. I'd be like, dude, I don't know. Like, I mean, of course I will, but